Disclosure, guys. What's up? We're live, and we're going to be talking about disclosure. We're going to be talking about the documentary Age of Disclosure that just came out, and we're going to be talking about all these subjects surrounding it because I believe that even though many of you may not know this, and I think a lot of you probably do or you wouldn't be watching, that 99.9% of people that are going to be living in the next few years are going to be experiencing either this or some type of deception associated with this. So guys, stay tuned. We will be right back.
The world keeps lying, but he won't retreat on his quest for truth. Yeah. Truth, quest for truth. They can't stop me, they can't block me. Moving through, got that fire, they can't block me. Quest for truth, breaking chains, making waves. That's what I do. When they hate, I create.
All right, guys, we're back, and we're getting ready to talk about disclosure. And so I'm excited to talk about it with you guys. We're live, and so we're going to give it a few minutes before we get started to let people kind of get in here, and so we're able to go. So tonight I will be doing questions and answers as well along the way. So if you have a question, put it in all caps, and I'm going to get to as many of those as I possibly can in there. But also, if you do the super chat, then I guarantee that I will get to your question because it's easy to see. I promise you that I'll get to it. But the if you do have a question, you want me to see it, all caps, it's a lot easier for it to stand out to me. So only do that for questions if you don't mind, because otherwise I get sidetracked and confused and all that good stuff that happens to a guy like me live. So I'm excited to do this with you guys. So grab your favorite drink, grab your popcorn or whatever it is that you want to grab. And tonight we're going to do this together live. So I'm excited to do this. I've got, I think, 2 audios going on here. So maybe that is better with audio. Hopefully, for some reason, there was 2 audios being captured there. So anyways, we're live once again. Hopefully that's better. I don't know. I didn't see anybody complaining, but my goodness, it looked like there was 2 audios rolling at the same time. So hopefully that's better. So let me know how you guys have been in the chat. And if you're watching this and you're not here with us live, then maybe one day you'll be able to make it here live with us and be able to join the live squad. But until then, let me know how you guys are doing in the comment section. I love to hear that kind of stuff. And I've been reading most of the comments. I started out reading all of them. I'm reading most now, but it's getting to a point you guys have left so many comments that I haven't been able to read all of them, but I read most of them. So be sure to leave the comments in the comment section so that we can get to some of this stuff. So, all right, guys, it looks like people are getting in. And if you guys are in this right here, like I said before, I will be answering questions throughout the entire episode. If you put it in caps, I'm more likely to see it. If you do a super chat, for sure, I'm answering the question. So we'll kind of get started here. I'm just going to talk a little bit with you guys and go over some of the stuff that I see coming, and from my years of really being involved in studying this stuff, I feel like I have a perspective that I wouldn't say it's completely unique, but I feel like it's pretty unique. Usually there's always 2 sides. There's either one side that's all the way over here, or there's one side that's all the way over here. And I think that this subject, like many other subjects, it's the same kind of way. Like you have the people that are all the way on the left side of it, all the way on the right side of it. And I think that there's more to it. I think that it's tied to a final deception that's talked about in ancient texts, including the Bible, and especially the Bible, actually. And so I just definitely want to bring some of this stuff up. So this documentary, some of you have seen it. If you've seen it, let me know in the chat, or let me know in the comments if you've seen this documentary. It's like it's on Amazon, I believe, and it's like $19 to rent, like $30 to buy it. And so if you have been studying this phenomenon, this type stuff that's going on, or you've experienced any of these things, none of this is going to be anything groundbreaking, I don't think, to you. There are high-level people in it talking about it, but it's not like, wow, this is groundbreaking stuff that I'm hearing here. My goodness, I can't believe I heard this. There's going to be stuff that you probably already know, probably already heard, but you're going to be hearing it from people who are kind of whistleblower type people talking about these scenarios. And the way it's kind of framed up is in a way that you have one group that really fully wants disclosure, and then you have this other group, and I think they title them and they talk about them as the Collins elite, as that want to keep it bridled because they don't think the public can handle the information, or they think that, you know, whatever they may think. There's a Christian kind of point of view there that I'll explain here in a minute, but it goes under the assumption that there are people that can't handle it, and then there's people that want full disclosure, and then they're the group that wants full disclosure, and so they're talking about their experiences. Some of them claim to have seen crafts and bodies, and some of them have, definitely claimed to kind of understand some of the way these things work by maybe working at different places, etc. Now, here's the thing about all of this in this documentary that you have to kind of keep in the back of your mind when you're watching it. We have to trust what these people are saying based on their information that they've been through. So it's this is always secondhand information, and if they are still in the government or still part of an organization or any of those things, they're going to have a vested interest in whatever information that is portrayed through this, or they're going to have their own agenda, their own lens that they're looking at it through, that the agenda is portrayed. And that's the same if you watch my content or you watch anybody's content. They're most likely, not always, I try not to, in Pounder's Quest, I try not to put a slant toward any for sure idea when it comes to, especially when it comes to stuff like this. I mean, we're talking about aliens here, stuff that a lot of people believe is tinfoil hat stuff. We've been made to believe is a joke up till now, and now we have high level people saying that this is legitimate. And so when we look at this stuff, we have to be in the understanding that most of the people that are high level probably have vested interest somewhere, and they have a slant to this material, or they've experienced things that lead them to believe what they believe. And we all know, like, experiences really do shape our worldview in a big way. And so I'm not going to say that they didn't experience these things. I'm not going to say that what they're saying isn't true, but I am going to kind of go and talk a little bit about this, because I do think that there's some things to consider with all of this information that we're talking about here that we really do need to consider. And once again, guys, if you have a question throughout this, put it in all caps, and I will try to get to it. If you do it in the super chat, I will be sure to get to your question at some point during this broadcast today. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that I think are important to note in all of this. I would say there's kind of a UFO, I hesitate to say it like this, but like drama, kind of like opposing arguments and sides to this whole thing. Okay, so you have the Collins Elite, which is honest. I looked into the Collins Elite, and there's no actual mention of Collins Elite before 2010. And I'll tell you the lore about the Collins Elite and what they're about and what are they're claimed. And a lot of high-level people believe in this, and they believe this is true. But these are basically supposed Christian-type people who looked into some paranormal phenomenon, and they believe that the UFOs are in fact demonic, and that also the aliens are all like fallen angels deceiving people, etc. And I'll explain that here in a minute. And then the other side believes in disclosure. They're actually trying to contact them, doing rituals and all of that stuff. So that's kind of like the two extreme ends of the spectrum there. And so the reason the Collins Elite started investigating this stuff is because Crowley, which was in the OTO, along with Jack Parsons, which is later on in the game, Jack Parsons did this thing called the Babylon working, in which Jack Parsons, for those of you who don't know who he is or didn't see the film about him, I think I've done several broadcasts mentioning and talking about this guy in the past. And he was a jet propulsion scientist that worked for NASA and also had his own lab called JPL. And he was also a member of the Ordo Templo Orientis. And in the early 1900s, Aleister Crowley did. You see this book here on the far left here. There's this book, and it's called the Ama Lantra working. And this is about the working that Aleister Crowley did, and he summoned this entity that's next to that picture called Lamb, which looks a lot like what a lot of people see in the gray aliens. And he received information. Book of the Law was written. Book of the Law still holds, and some of you guys don't know this about me, some of you do, but I've spent the last decade really honing in and studying the occult literature as well as biblical literature, etc. And this is where, these Book of the Law, this is a foundational book for these secret societies and religious orders, especially orders surrounding Hollywood and the people who are in charge of the information flow. I guess we could put it that way. Those kind of people, they really have an interest in the Book of the Law. It's also one of the 4 holy books they put at some of the lodges, depending on which kind of lodge you're in. And so, anyways, this is interesting stuff. So, to follow that up, the Babylon working was done, and this is, mind you, months before the UFOs and all of those different things start to pop up everywhere, before the Roswell incident and all of that, before the all that in the 40s. This is literally right before it. And Jack Parsons, L. Ron Hubbard, and some others. L. Ron Hubbard, if you know that name, Scientology, the founder of Scientology, they do this working called the Babylon working, in which they're trying to summon something called, Babylon, I guess, into the system. And many people, most people believe that they were successful, and that's why we started seeing all the increase in all this activity. Still to this day, I had a guy on, some of you guys probably saw the episode where I was talking to Craig Lund, where he worked in Silicon Valley, but still to this day, these rituals are 100% foundational in a lot of discoveries in technology. I've done many broadcasts, and there's been documentaries done on this, but people who claim to receive this information from another spiritual world, another entity, from the Mahat, from the Aether, or whatever you want to call it, they receive this information, and this is how major discoveries, mathematics, scientific findings have been accumulated over time. It's crazy to think about, but these people claim this. Even Tesla claimed that this is the way that he received this information. So, when you think about it, and so there's rituals involved in that. So you have dark stuff that is associated with all that. And so this group, this Collins elite, were wanting to investigate this type stuff because they were like, okay, like this is something's going on with this. We need to figure it out. And so they were convinced that this was all demonic powers and UFOs that were scamming people into believing that they were entities, etc. And so they started investigating. They started doing their own stuff. They started dabbling themselves and doing things, but they maintained like a Judeo-Christian commandments-based, and they were like, major players in the government. Supposedly, this is the theory according to a book by, I believe, Redfern, I think is the guy's name, that wrote it in like 2010. And I can't remember the name of the book here in a minute. I'll probably recall it. But there was no mention of this Collins elite before that, mind you. So you have to keep that in the back of your head too. So the mentions of Collins elite alone is not foundational nor 100% can be believed, just to let you guys know. But the story goes that they went to this witch, this high-level witch who was a member of, she was the most respected witch and in London, and she was of the highest orders that a female witch could be in, which a lot of people believe that those are the higher orders because true witchcraft is more easily done through women, which I believe that there's something to that. But her name was Sybil Leek, and so I'm going to just show you guys just a clip of who this lady is real quick.
order, we in the New Forest don't use so many trappings and rituals as perhaps other covens do, but there are basic things which we all need. That is the sword and various other things.
Are there very many witches about?
Well, I think you would be very, very surprised if you knew how many initiated witches there are in the whole world. And not only that, there's a very great following in witchcraft.
So there you go. This is who she is, Sybil Leek. And when she did the seance, they were there taking notes, and this entity spoke forth, and I cannot remember the name of the entity. I'm doing all this off the pretty much the top of my head. I don't want to have notes in front of me or anything. I just want to, this is a live. I just want to talk to you guys, but you can look this up and find out for yourself. But there is this entity, I want to say it's called like Kalamazoo or Kazooie or something, that speaks and says that basically to the extent that we're all kind of cattle and they feed off our energies, which are our souls. And they didn't really like that answer very much. And so in their mind, these were demonic entities. We weren't to summon them, weren't to contact them anymore. And they have been active within the government trying to keep that information from the mass public. And so that's kind of the story of the Collins elite and where they came from and what their goal is in all of this. So there you go in a nutshell if you don't know what they are, because I had to do some research into it too, because I was always under the assumption for some reason or the other that they for sure were a group, and there's no doubt, they're a documented group, but there's no like real documentation and real talks of this group before 2010. Now, the rest of the information that I shared with you is in fact documented information about Jack Parson, Aleister Crowley, and there are people who definitely believe that these entities are all demonic. I mean, there are people that believe that, and I have been the person in the past to believe that they are at least of a fallen angel or demonic origin. And I'll explain what I believe about all this when we're done here, because there's a lot to really take into account when you're talking about this stuff, because we have technologies, we have angels, demons, creatures, we have all of the things that really could be factored into these equations that maybe sometimes when we lump everything into one thing that we don't quite fully understand. And so, that is kind of where the problem is with all of this, because depending on your worldview, depending on your religion, this is how you're going to see these entities. You're going to see them as either they are, from the biblical lens, angels, demons, or depending on if you're the pagan lens, they could be gods, they could be, ancestors, depending on that. If you're a theosophist, they could be ascended masters. If you're, in the Muslim faith, they could be jinn, etc. But they all share these kind of common qualities, and it seems that they're actually communicating with the government. And if that's the case, to me, that really solidifies so much about what we're hearing, because in the ancient times, these entities, whatever people decide to classify it as, whether you classify it biblically as either a hybrid, a Nephilim, a fallen angel, or a demonic entity, and I think that they are all of those above, A, B, C, D. They're all of those above. And I think that you can classify them however, if you, depending on what your wordage you want to use with it, but ultimately they all kind of have a similar function. And even in ancient times, there's a similar function with the visitation of these entities from above. And there's the story in the biblical story of this in Genesis 6. It talks about these sons of God, whatever that is, because it's really kind of a vague word. It means the B'nai Elohim, the Elohim, sons of the Elohim. And so that's vague. It could mean like, what do they look like? Do they look like us? Are they reptilian? Are they look like beavers? What do they look like? And so you have this idea that these sons of God came down to the daughters of men and they had children with them. The Bible says in Genesis 6, you can look this up yourself if you don't believe me, and they had children, and the same became mighty men of old, men of renown. And it said that there were giants on the earth in those days and also after that. And so this is like before and the flood, and then after the flood, it mentions these things too. every religion in the world mentions these kind of entities, or the idea, at least, even if you look at Greek mythology, Roman mythology, ancient Assyrian mythologies, there's always the gods coming and intermingling themselves together with mankind. This is something that happens like over and over and over again in every religion. So this is something that continues to happen. And now what we're possibly looking at least according to my viewpoint, is a rendition of that. And maybe we don't understand it all because not everybody's getting these visitations from these entities, but you have to look at like what are some of the entities these people are seeing. They're claiming to see these alien looking gray type aliens. They're claiming to see Nordic type aliens that are tall, blonde headed. And some people are claiming to see reptilian type entities. And if you really look at the scripture, almost all of those are mentioned in the Bible. And so you have these different types of entities that are out there, but then you also have this part of it that is technological. And so it's not actually an entity involved, but there's like a technological aspect to a lot of these things, just kind of like a computer. This is a technological aspect to the equation between me and you talking. This is the technology that is the medium between us. And in that same way, because of possibly finding these beings and their technologies in everyday activities, like some of these groups claim to have the ability to, and they have this, top clearance where they take these crafts and then they reverse engineer, or they get the bodies and they take them back, look at them, etc. And so the possibility of a government entity or a non-government entity, probably more likely a contracted entity with unlimited funds, and also has been taking and reverse engineering some of these things. These I want to call them the chariots of the gods. I mean, if biblically, these things could be the wheels within the wheels that Ezekiel was seeing. These crafts could be what the chariots that were being seen in the Bible were, and they're reverse engineering these things. So if that's the case, if any of that's true, and that we have to put a big if there on all of this stuff, if that's true, then it's possible that these are pieces of technology. Because what is technology? We have to define that. It's hard to define it. You can define it as things made by man, but ultimately we are making things that God made, and secrets were leaked to us by the entities. It even talks about that in the Bible. So like ultimately, what is technology? What is magic, etc.? But like these crafts that they could be getting could be being used to do these same kind of tests on human people to see where things are going. Like, I'm just saying that that's possible. If all this other stuff is even possible, that's got to be possible too. And I right off the bat, I see a question here, and I'm going to ask it really quickly. It says, this is from Lynn. It says, do you ever consider many things we were taught just simply are not true, but were man's ether interpretation of how the man wanted things to be remembered or taught? And definitely I have considered that. I think that a lot of stuff is actually that. A lot of stuff is people's interpretation of how they see the world. And so they've written it down in books. And I'm not slamming anybody that's written books. I'm really not trying to do that. I'm not trying to be like, oh, writing books is wrong. But I myself purposely have not written a book. I will probably write a journal to leave with my children. If they want to publish it one day, they can. But I have not written a book because I don't want to add to the noise of everything else, because I believe that the more you read, the less farther away you get from the truth, because you have more things to consider. And there's all of these different things. And so, yeah, definitely what people write is probably 99% bullcrap. Honestly, I mean, I'm not trying to be like crude, but like probably 99% of it is people's vain imaginations, or they're operating on the inspiration of something that they shouldn't be operating underneath, or they're adding to the noise, like the Bible, book of Enoch, for instance. Like if you haven't read that, it's like people say, oh, your pastor might warn you about it or whatever. But like I've read it, and to me, it goes along with what the Bible says, etc. And it's really just to me, moving book, but it talks about men still sinning to this day because of learning how to basically be scribes. And so many of the religions of the world are based off this. Many of the things that we believe are foundational in history are based off of this. And although when I say I haven't written a book, I have written books. I did even write one based off the principle of the art of war, but a biblical kind of foundation to that. But I decided not to release it. So there you go. That's my ideas about books. Yes, a lot of stuff that we believe and understand and look at are just beliefs of other men who may have the belief. They may have been under the inspiration of something else. They may be under the inspiration of money, of trickery, of a demonic entity, or of God, right? And I do believe that the Bible is, I've read a lot of books over the years, like a ton of books, and really, like, the Bible seems to be very inspired. It seems to be so dead on in a lot of ways, not just esoterically, but also historically and archaeologically, which make it so interesting to me and give it way more credence than I think a lot of the other things. And I see a question here from Sweet Pea. She says, do you think there's any connection between this planned event and CERN and the Large Hadron Collider? And maybe, like, for sure, maybe, because I do believe all those things are connected. I believe that. So let me just kind of start. Let me go to this. Let me preface this. 2025 is a big year for the occult, if you don't know that already. And let me explain why. But if you read Alice Bailey's book, The Externalization of the Hierarchy, and this is like kind of the New Age idea, but the hierarchy is what they call them, which are invisible, but also in the heavens, visit Earth in 2025. And as mentioned a couple times in this book, 2025 being the year, this is the golden era, the golden age that they're ushering in. So 2025 is a year that absolutely is huge to them. And the Hadron Collider is a big part of what I believe their plan is. I believe this is, now look, I'm nobody. I don't work at CERN, but I've looked at it enough. I've seen the symbols. Like, if you look at the logo, you can clearly see the 666. If you see some of the symbolism out there, you have the statue of Shiva that is, the destroyer of worlds. And I understand some of the science behind this idea, but what they're trying to do basically is kind of open up a portal in a way. This is how they kind of describe it, open up a portal. And where it's built is right over by where the supposed palace of Apollyon was, which in the Bible, Apollyon is the one who comes out of the bottomless pit and brings in the, some of the final days of the world war. And so it's hard not to see that as a connection, especially when we're starting to really see entities and being, hard prepped. I'm not talking about, we've been soft prepped for a long time, but we're being literally hard prepped to take in this idea that we are getting ready to experience entities on a mass scale. And so we're being hard prepped for that. And so the problem, I guess, that I wouldn't say I have with all that, but when you look at, like, some of these symbols, like, this is a more ancient thing. There's nothing new, I don't believe, but when you look at, like, all the symbols, like, are in these pictures here, you see the same symbols appearing nearly all over the world. And a lot of these symbols, these wheels and stuff, these are, look a lot like CERN. They look a lot like, magnetrons, etc., that are used in electricity. And some people believe that, like, a lot of these symbols were left on stone because they wanted these symbols to be seen by somebody someday, so that maybe they could interpret them or use them for some sort of technology. And I think there's a form of technology that does, I want to be careful how I put this, but it does interact with entities. So there's a certain kind of technology that does interact in entities. And I think the answer a lot of times lies in these symbols. And in Babylon, God split the tongues up, 72 nations, tongues, split them up because of what they were doing. And I can't see that what they were doing could have been much better than or worse than what we're doing. So I don't know what they were doing at the time, but God saw it to be like, wow, this is like bad enough that he says anything's going to be possible. Anything they think of is going to be possible. And so he saw fit to put an end to whatever they were doing there. And so when we look at these symbols and we look at this, it's almost like they put these symbols in stone because they knew the earth was going to be destroyed either by by fire or by water. And so they put them in stone so that people in the future could see them and maybe their offspring could see them and maybe join forces. And thank you so much. Who is this? David, is this Forsland, I believe is your name there? Thank you so much, David. I appreciate that a ton. I really do appreciate that. And so, yes. So anyways, I think that they're aware of this. I think they're trying to pull this stuff. I think that all symbols operate at a frequency. They understand that now. And so these symbols even have more meaning other than the esoteric that we've been studying for a long time. But they actually have frequency meaning, and they're able to harness these frequencies and somehow use these things to do more. I believe that that's the case. Who am I? Nobody, but I have studied this for a long time. So it's an informed opinion, let's put it that way, about what is going on there. Etc. So here we go. Here is something else I want to show you too. Is like these are petroglyphs and carvings on walls, and these look like technological things that have been captured on rock. And you have to understand that the way that we've operated for a long time has been based off of one branch of technology. For instance, like how we have power, like our power supply. We've decided instead of using this power source, which is say air, for instance, or water, we've decided to use the power source of coal or of oil for this long period of time. And therefore, most of the machines that we've developed are based off of our use of that form of energy. I hope that makes sense. So everything's been developed based off of a certain form of energy. Now, what I think and what a lot of other researchers think is that there was a form of energy that was much more free, let's say, free from right from the air. And they had the ability to harness that information. And the Masons speak about this, a lot of different I would say religions speak of it, but it's more in an esoteric tone, so most people could glance right over and never understand it. But they have there's this ability to be able to pull from that source and to be able to use that for energy in some way or another. And a lot of people do put that to use through magical means or through drugs, etc., to be able to visit that source and get information from that source. Not saying I'm not condoning it or anything like that. I'm just saying that people do that in order to get from that source. But if there was a source that was more harnessable, that didn't require a fuel like what we use today, then imagine what our inventions would look like. They would look different. They would power different. They would be different. It'd be easier, different to use. So to say that we don't have as good a technology as them, I think our technology is probably, if you really think about it, just different, really. I mean, it could have just been different in a lot of ways. Shadow 96433, does the vision that God gave Jeremiah connect to the fall of Lucifer? I think it's very possible that it connects to that. Absolutely, I think it is possible that it connects to that. I mean, there's different entities mentioned throughout the Bible, and I think that a lot of people tie in Lucifer and Satan all as the same being, or them all as the same entity. But you got to remember there were 72 entities that were put in charge of the children of Israel, or put in charge of the people of the world. And there were also different kinds of entities that were out there. And there were some that were mentioned as a tree. Some were mentioned as, like the one for Lucifer, for instance, the Hebrew is Hallel ben Shahar is the name, and they translate it to Lucifer, light bearer. But that doesn't necessarily, mean light bearer if you really think about it. But that is the term that he's described as, is the light bearer. But like we see in the scripture that Christ is the one who bears the light. And so it's an interesting paradigm when you look at it that way. I don't even know how to put into words like what that means, because Hallel ben Shahar, to me, in my simple little pea-headed brain, doesn't equate to the English Lucifer. So that's interesting to think about anyway, but I don't really know exactly what to make of that. So that's kind of where I'm at on that. And I do think that is an entity named Hallel ben Shahar. You can call him Lucifer. You can call him, because that's what it's translated as in Isaiah. I don't know that Jeremiah is talking about that entity, but there's, something to think about there. I don't really know exactly how to, I guess, take that question and maybe give the answer to that. Jeremiah might be talking about a different entity there, and it might be talking about Satan himself. And David Carrico, as you guys know him from the Midnight Ride, you've seen the show that I've done with him on the Midnight Ride. He came up, actually, when I first met him, he did a teaching about Lucifer actually being the son of Satan, because it means, it calls him Hallel ben Shahar, son of the morning. If you look at that in the Hebrew, that is an entity, right? Son of another entity, the morning. The morning, I can't remember the name of that entity or the word for it in Hebrew, but it's another entity. And he's the son of that entity. So he's more like a Nephilim, I guess you could say. And so that's why when I say, is it talking about that? Maybe, but they're all kind of connected in a way that they're against God. And I think that there's one in charge of those entities, especially if you read in Revelation, you believe that when he says he took 1/3 of the stars to earth with him when he was thrown to earth, if you believe that 1/3 of those stars are actually entities and angels, then he's definitely the one who led them to that position. Doreen says, Jesus said, my people perish from lack of knowledge, yet most pastors and priests won't go near any of this. That's the part that makes me the most nervous about this. And this is really kind of why I've talked about this topic a lot, is because you're right. Most pastors won't touch this with a stick. They won't touch it. But I do believe that this is going to be one of the biggest deceptions of all time, and their flock is not going to be prepared, and they're going to fall for the deception. So getting back to kind of, I got off on a few questions there for a minute, but let me kind of get back to what I was going to talk about this documentary. So there seems to be people that are, if the Collins leader are a real thing, which I don't know that I believe that they are. I really don't know. I believe that there are people that do believe the way that they believe it's all demonic or angels, and we shouldn't be looking into them. We shouldn't be doing dark seances and paying black budget money to do them like they've been doing. I do believe there are people that think like that, but are they prevalent in our government? Like, based off of all of the operations that I've seen take place or that have been declassified, not to mention the ones that are still classified that of course I don't know about, or if I do, I couldn't tell you anyway, but there's all of these different things that are going on in the world that are excuse me, that are been popping off that show me that they're not as strong within the government as maybe some of these people give them credit for, because they're still doing all of these psychic operations. They're still, at the highest levels of some of these organizations that are doing technology. They're still summoning. They're still doing all these things. So how powerful are really the Collins Elite? And are they just kind of setting them up to be the bad guy, as some of these guys that, they've stopped this technology, they want to shut it all down, and now they're, and then we get lumped in, people that believe like They believe they are probably biblical entities. We get lumped in with these people and kind of become the enemy in all of this. But what I think, I just did a broadcast with Jamie Walden and Nino on Nino's channel. It'll probably air tomorrow night, sometime tomorrow evening. And we were just talking about how in the Bible it says that the people will project their weapons toward the sky, and the people will be hiding inside the earth for the things that are coming upon the earth. And from all the research that I've done for the last decade, it really points me to believe that most of these entities that we're seeing right now aren't from outer space, but they're from like inside the earth or from underneath the water. And like, I'm not the only one that believes this. There's high level people that believe in this stuff that are really been tracking it, that believe this the same way. And so I think they want us to accept the narrative that these are some kind of superior being that we're not being allowed to study. I think that's part of it. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm just giving you my opinion here. They want us to believe that there's some kind of superior thing that we're going to have to fall for, or whatever religion they throw at us when they come. And that when Christ comes, they'll already be here solidified as our friends. And when Christ comes, he will be the one that they project all of the enemies that they've been, or all of the weapons that they've been putting together, all of the entities that come together and push and push and push. They're going to be the ones that try to fight against God because they believe that they can win. That's what I believe. And I think this documentary, although it was a great documentary and I think you guys should watch it, I think I want to point out that I guess you could conceive that that narrative is at least partially being pushed here. And I'm not 100% into the Collins lead. I don't even know I don't even know if it's real. But at the same time, I don't believe that we should be conjuring up entities. Personally, I don't believe in that. I believe the Bible. So I'm not going to be going conjuring up entities to give me talents and stuff like that. If God wants to give me the talent or give me the blessing of being able to do it or whatever, I'm good. But but these people are willing to do this, and our government's been willing to do this for a long time. And I see another question here from Shrayuka, I believe is how you pronounce your name. It says, do you believe angels can take on a human appearance? And do you think demons, if a door is open, can take over a human's person? And do you think that they want the public to believe they created us? Let me take a sip of this because my throat, if you can't tell, is getting a little dry. It's a good question, by the way. All right. So, question is, do you believe angels can take on a human appearance? Yes, I do. To give a quick answer on that, and I'll give you a reason why in a minute. And do you think demons, if a door is open, can take over a human person? Another yes there. And do you think they want the public to believe they created us? Another yes there. I believe all three. Affirm yes to those. The Bible shows us that angels can take human appearance. There are several situations where the angels took human appearance in the Bible. Also, it says, you're entertaining angels unaware sometimes. You don't know it to be, it's just to let you know that there's that possibility that you're entertaining angels. So yeah, definitely. I think they're shapeshifters. I think they can appear as anything they want, which is what makes them even more dangerous than, in the fallen sense, makes them even more dangerous than anything else that we can encounter. And I think a lot of and look, this is my opinion, but I think a lot of the high level people that seem to have an appearance over hundreds of years that seem, keep coming up with pictures of them, I think that there's a possibility that they might be those entities. They might actually be an entity that just keeps popping up generations, after. And yes, demons, I do believe they can take over people. I believe, and I've experienced exorcisms, I guess you could call them that, but not really exorcisms to the point to where we prayed over people. Demons have been cast out. I've seen it in people. I've seen things manifest in people before that I believe and felt that were entities. I've had my own experiences. So I believe all of this stuff is real, and they definitely want people to think that they created them so that they can get worship. They like worship. Lucifer wanted worship. He wanted to be like God. He still wants to be like God. He said he's going to sit his throne on the sides of the north, and he wants to be worshipped as God. This is what the ultimate goal of all of that is, legitimate. Like, that's for sure what they want. And that's why, and this is just something, you know, some people are going to believe me and some people are going to think I'm a kook when I say it, but like, here's the deal. Like, in Hollywood and in music industry and a lot of this, there is a real layer to how high that you can go. At least this is based off of literally everybody that has ever been that I've ever been able to talk to, I've ever watched about talk about this, and this is based off of some of the experience that I've seen. Like, there's only a certain level you're going to get to unless you decide you want to turn over to the Dark Lord, because the Dark Lord controls the all of it, you know, ultimately when it comes to the airwaves and the information flow. And of course, God can lift people up to certain levels, but like, there's a level that you can go to that is reachable to that level. And we have to use the spirit of discernment, and we want to be very careful, because a lot of these people in the positions that they're at, they operate at a level that is in front of a lot of people, and like, the demons love the worship, and so they inhabit these people in a big way, even helping them write songs. I mean, you've heard the Led Zeppelin story, where Stairway to Heaven was written, auto script written in the house of Aleister Crowley. All of these people deeply believe this, and they attribute most of their supernatural ability for people to love them to that. I mean, when you really think about the supernatural ability that they have to woo people, there's famous people that when they walk into the room, people literally faint. People scream, like, you know, teenagers scream their guts out, and they see that because they get this supernatural presence to these people. And then there, you know, there's other famous people too that maybe you don't feel that way about, but there's certain people that walk around with that supernatural presence. And I do believe that. And I felt it. And I've met people like that before, that you can feel the presence in there. So yeah, I do most certainly believe that. Now, just because I believe it doesn't make it so, no, but I think, like, if you believe the Bible, you can make a biblical argument for it. And based off my experiences, which is what you have to believe, you know, just like I have to believe what these guys are saying in this documentary, but you have, you know, my experiences, but that doesn't really say much to you unless you've had those experiences yourself. But I would say that if you've had those experiences, talk about them in the comments, talk about them in the chat, so people see that this stuff is like not just a few people here and there. I mean, there are people that probably have never experienced any of these things, and I think the devil really likes it that way. If all of this is devil based or whatever, and even government based, like, the devil would like for not most people to know about it, because that's how they can keep their deniability. Because if it's only a few people that are saying it, then it's easy to cast them off as a crazy person. Like, these people are stupid, they're crazy, whatever. You know, here we go. But it is what it is. So let me look here. I'm gonna look for some other questions here, and I see that there are people on here that most people on here is very good chat. It looks like I can only skim through. That's why I say, like, I answer questions if I see them in all caps, but if they're on the super chat, I definitely can see them because it's really easy and it keeps them up there for me longer, and it's all of that. So I don't want to have you pay to ask me a question, but it is easier to see. And on top of that, hey, who doesn't like a super chat every now and then, right? So there is so here it is, Jacob Williams. It says, what do you think they are implanting in abductees? They stuck a needle in my eye during my experience. I was strapped down and couldn't move. They kept saying, stay calm, and they had done it before. There's a lot of stories of this, about this, and people being abducted and having some kind of implantation done inside of them, whether it be in their head, their eye, And I'll tell you a story in a minute of a guy that was in Hollywood that had this done to him. But I would say that it's experimental technology. Their kind of experimental technology, whoever is doing it, or a technology to allow them to interface with you in a different kind of way or greater way, or the ability to track you, or the ability to influence you with frequencies, etc., make you feel a certain way, all of these different things. And I think some of the times it's all of the above. I think that those are some of the main reasons that some of these implants can occur. And of course, I don't know all the reasons. There could be any number of reasons why they're implanting this stuff into people because, man, let's face it, like if they look at us as cattle, or if they look at us as they're trying to merge with us, which is what a lot of the people that I've had on in the past believe. They believe that a lot of these like fake pregnancies that people have from UFO experiences are actually them trying to manifest themselves, because they're spirits, to manifest themselves into a human body and then be born of a human woman, making them, I guess, a hybrid of some sort. And that is like a common belief. I think that Nathaniel, oh my goodness, I can't think of his last name. I had him on a few weeks ago. He was talking about this ideology and belief, and there's a lot of stories that point to this being exactly what a lot of people believe. Whether I've never seen it nor experienced it, so I can't speak to whether or not it's true or not, but it's definitely a very real possibility. Chris Hickman, and if your question's not, or let's see, let's just read it. Is then God's power is above and beyond evil, and why did he allow people's souls to be stolen, all because of fame and fortune? So God gives us the ability to choose. It's not like they got their souls stolen. There was a greedy motive behind it all. Because, or maybe just, a prideful motive. I'm not going to say greedy every time. And I'm just going to tell you what I believe. Here says John. Could mean nothing. Could be true. I believe that we have to come into this world through the womb, which can be translated into the word matrix. And we have free choice. And we get to choose good or we get to choose evil. And we'll go through a very various structure of trials throughout those times from A to Z that will lead us to our own understanding of what happens at the end and where we lead our life. I mean, basically, our life being summed up is a matter of choice. How many choices have we made that get us here or there? Now, we're born, all of us are born, some of us are born in horrific environments, and some people are born in glamorous environments. However, all of those environments come with their own set of drawbacks and their own set of difficulties that can lead people to the point to where they even want to give up on life. So just because you're rich or just because you're poor doesn't put you in a better place mentally nor spiritually than another person that's put here on this earth. And I believe that we're set in a position that we have to go through in order to make that choice. I believe that this earth is designed that we will make the choice, and then when we stand before God one day, which I believe will happen, we will have the choice. We will have to look at our life, maybe like a snapshot, just scrolling through time, everything we've done. And when God says this is the judgment, there won't be a doubt in any single person's mind why God made their choice, because they are going to see that they had the option to come here and make their choices. There you go. That's what my answer is, whether or not that's the exact way God's brain thinks, way this whole system operates. But based off of what I believe the Bible is saying, based off what I believe that almost every other spiritual book in the world that's maybe have some bit of truth to it at all, we are in this put here and we have a goal. Some people find it, some people don't, some people deny it, some people thrive and claim to it. And I think a lot of the times when we decide not to, at least all the times where I've gone back and looked at all the times where I have chose the devil before being a believer, I chose the devil all the time. And even after being a believer, there's been times where I've unknowingly chose the devil, even maybe, you know. It's always been about pride. It's always been about how can I make myself better? How can I achieve a better status in this world? And that ultimately is what selling your soul is. I don't believe, yes, you can make pacts with demons and they can take your life. But ultimately, selling your soul is, in fact, giving your actions and your life and your allegiance to the God of the physical, which I believe is Satan. I believe that is Satan. And so if you give your allegiance to that, then that's selling your soul. I believe you can make pacts with demons too. People do that. It's different where you're signing your name in blood. Even satanic contracts can ensue that. But ultimately, selling your soul can be that simple. So like, it doesn't even take you being in Hollywood. Some people sell their soul for nuggets, for next to nothing. They sell their soul for, 9 to 5 and a TV with the football games. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's people that go that far to sell their soul, sell everything that they were made to do based on what they think they're supposed to do in order to be successful. And then there are extreme cases, which I do believe that entities themselves do visit people. I believe that happened to me. And it sounds crazy when I tell people that, but I mean, I really do believe it happened to me. And I'm like, and it happened to me in a dream. And it was like a situation where I couldn't even tell it was your dream because I was just sitting there and I was just there all of a sudden. And there is I think the situations come over and over again. It's not just like a one-time thing. It's like one of these things where you're always going to have to choose between good and evil, between either getting accolades by the enemy or maybe being humble, pulling behind a little bit, but later getting the accolades by God himself and being able to shuck that pride. It's always that decision. Melissa Rice, thank you so much, sister. I appreciate that for your donation here in the super chat. And it says, God bless you, Brother John. Thank you for sharing the beautiful Holy Spirit wisdom. All glory to God. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And I hope that's what I'm doing. I try my best to only be kind of objective and look at the stuff and say, look, this is what I believe. But ultimately, truth is going to resonate with all of us. I do these live. Live is really different because it's like when I speak, I realize the weight of the words that I'm saying. Yeah, I'm no superstar where my words are going to get to millions of people every time I talk, but thousands of people are going to hear what it is I have to say about a topic. And I want to make sure that whatever I say is not just my own puffed up, arrogant, blowhard opinion, because I've done that in the past. You guys can probably look back on some of the old videos and be like, man, look at John. He's being a freaking blowhard again. He thinks he knows everything. But I don't want to be that way anymore because I realize that that is exactly the way the enemy wants us to operate. Because if I can pretend like I know everything, or even if I think I know everything, I'm probably not going to get to what I need to know in the end, because it's just like one of those things. And along the way, there's things that I've ignored. I've ignored a lot of ideas and things along the way just by being arrogant and prideful. So that's another way you can kind of miss out on fine truths that hit the soul just right, like a delicate candy bar, delicacy candy bar hits the stomach, right? It's just something good about it. And Justin says, or should we keep this movement going that God is showing those who can discern the times, lest Satan get an advantage? I think that some people should keep the movement going, do whatever they feel led to do. Like we all should do what we feel led to do. Like there's always going to be people that say, John, you should be doing this. You should talk about this. You shouldn't do this. You need to do this. And like I've been experiencing that since 2010, really my whole life, I guess. I mean, if you really think about it, from the time I'm a kid to the time I'm 43 years old now, I've been having people tell me like, how should I live my life? What should I do? And for decades, for 30 years, I obeyed that. I listened to what everybody else said, like, this is what you should do. And it cost me greatly. And I wish I could emphasize that more. Like, it cost me greatly to give any kind of credence to what other people think I should do with my life. Because, like, yes, I want to take advice. I have friends that I'm like, those people are God sent. They have expertise in this. So look, I can ask them these questions. Like I definitely have people that I'm like, I value what they have to say, but like when God tells me to do something, or when I feel the passion and or whatever, leave or show up for something, like I know that God's getting ready to do something, and I don't ever have to be worried about my own abilities. Like this is the thing. It's like, for instance, when I quit doing the midnight ride, like, and I'm going to take a drink before I talk about this because I'll probably be long-winded about it. I'm not trying to be long-winded. I know I've got an hour, but this is a live. We're doing a Q&A. We can talk about some stuff if you guys want to join. Like I said, if you do all caps, definitely I'll get to your, or I'll look at your question, maybe get to it if I can see it. Chat's moving pretty fast. If you do a super chat, I will answer those questions for sure, guaranteed. I see 2 super chats. Give me 1 second. Diane Green, thank you so much, sister. I appreciate that. It says, I love the Pounders Quest topics. Thank you, John. Thank you so much. I'm glad you guys like this stuff because I enjoy talking about this. It's not the midnight ride, not even close, but it's something to still get some of these topics out here and talk about them in the way that I feel like that can be palatable. People need to understand them. And Deb Mueller, thank you, sister. Thank you so much. It says, for one redeemed, know it all to another. God bless you, John. God bless you. And we've all been there. I think we all get that way. Like when we first start, I think it's like, it's almost like a mandatory feeling that we all have, like, cause we see evil for what it is for the first time. And then over time, like we really think we know it all, like real quick. And because there's some truths obviously that God reveals to us that we're like, boom. And then arrogance, pride, all that stuff kind of comes in and really takes hold. So, I don't remember what I was going to talk about. I was going to be talking about the midnight ride for something here, but okay. Yes. For the midnight ride, for instance, like everything in my physical body wanted to not quit the midnight ride. Let me explain this to you for a second in a way you can understand. The midnight ride is the biggest thing that I have ever done. Now, some of you guys may be looking at that and be like, psh, that's pea stuff. I can do more than that. Good for you. But for me, this little Southern Indiana boy, the midnight ride was the biggest thing that I have ever done. And it was the biggest thing David had ever done. And I mean, let's face it, it reached thousands of people. It's a huge tool. It was like massive. And it was something that like, I look back on it, I'm really thankful for. It's amazing what happened there. And when I felt that God was actually telling me that there was a time when I was going to have to be done with that, like it was like, I mean, you got to understand, like I felt this hardcore for months. I could feel it. And it was like hard. It was like one of those things that it felt like a weight over my shoulders and that I knew I had to do, but I didn't want to do it. I really didn't want to do it. And, in the spirit, it makes sense because God's telling me to do it. I know God's got something. In the physical, it doesn't make sense because it's like, what are you doing? You're quitting your biggest show to do what? Like, what are you going to do? You're doing Pounders Quest. You're over there, talking, interviewing people or whatever. Like, come on, dude. Like, what are you thinking? Like, that's the physical side of it. But thankfully, I've been around the block for a few years, and I know that, like, God, if he's telling me to do this, he's got something else for me, and I don't have to be worried or afraid about it. And so I don't know what it is exactly. It might just be what we're doing here, but like we'll see what it is. But God's got something else he wants me to do. I believe that because I'm open, I'm willing. I don't know what it is yet. I do know that I have several ideas for shows that I'm going to do on Now You See TV that are going to fill in until I get the just the the proper show that just isn't the Midnight Ride, because there's no replicating the Midnight Ride. You can try a million different ways. The secret recipe is not going to be there, but I can do something else maybe. You know what I mean? So that's what I got to say. George Ball says, when you first introduced the Midnight Ride with David, biblical cosmology was the rabbit hole. Biblical cosmology was the rabbit hole. And I was introduced to lots of people, Skiba and any others. Thanks, John. Yeah, I think you're right. I think so. You were introduced to David via Now You See TV in 2000, middle end of 2015 is when you were introduced to David Carrico on the Midnight Ride. So, yeah, and that's I got hooked up with Rob in 2016. We became friends around then and did a conference together. He had me on a show again. I used to co-host the virtual house church with Rob Skiba for like a long time. I did that. And Quest for Truth, which was a show that this is one of the reasons I named this Pounder's Quest, because we did a show called Quest for Truth with Rob Skiba and Doug Hamp, and started out like that. And man, that was a good show. It ended up and not going on. I think Rob and Doug had some miscommunications, problems, and I think they ended up making it up one day. But like ultimately, like the quest for truth is what it's all about. Like I do believe I have a foundation to truth. I don't believe I know everything. I believe that more and more truth gets revealed to me over time. And so that's kind of where, all of this at. So I'm just kind of doing what I enjoy doing. I love making videos. I've literally always loved making videos. I wish I had a scroll of videos like a scroll of videos to play for you guys of like some of the videos I was doing as a child, just stupid videos, because I really liked it, enjoyed to do it. So again, I'm probably going to be done here in about 15 minutes, but if you have a question, put it in all caps. I will look for it. The chat's right here in front of me. It is very tiny, so caps help me see. If you put it in super chat, I can see it much better and I can enlarge it, and we could do that, and I'll answer the question for sure. But if you have any more, I'm going to stick around about 5 to 15 more minutes, depending on how many questions get thrown around the block here. All right, man, you guys have been a good group tonight. I know you guys got a million things you could be doing on a Friday night, and so I don't know how many people are going to join live. Live is fun. If you're not joining live, it's still going to be a good broadcast. But if you can ever join a live, that's going to be great. And here's the thing about these lives. They can't always be consistent on the Friday nights. Maybe they will be from time to time. They'll be sometimes more often than others, depending. But I'm going to tell you guys, I guess, before I answer any more questions, like what I want to do with this channel eventually and what my goal in this is. I want to be able to do consistent live shows like this, like the Midnight Ride was a consistent live show. But at the same time, God has told me, I believe God's told me that I'm supposed to travel and go different places and talk to people there while I'm doing it, maybe a traveling studio if I have to, and then film different things, see different things. And like, I'm not going to do that all the time, but I'm going to, there's going to be weeks where I'm not here in the studio. And so like, if I'm not in the studio, it makes it really, really difficult for me to do a live show. Like I'm just not adept at it. And so unless I have somebody traveling with me that knows what they're doing, like it's going to be really hard for me to do these, but I'm going to do them as many times as I can. I don't know if Friday night's the best time. Like I like Friday night. Let me know what you guys think. Like tell me when, according to the analytics that I look at on here, it looks like most of you guys are like on here midday, like noon to 5. So like if that's something too, let me know. Here's another question from Snake Pliskin, I believe is how you pronounce it. Snake Pliskin? Snake P. Liskin? whatever. Anyways, John, do you think AI was invented by man or rather a consciousness that was tapped into? Man, like there's let me give you a couple different scenarios here and a couple different theories that I have. Theory number 1, by far the craziest theory. AI is ancient information, ancient intelligence, not artificial intelligence, and rather than it being invented, it's being harnessed, because I think that there was a web of some sort before. And I think that maybe, just maybe, that some of this stuff we're experiencing could be AI related or related to some kind of artificial intelligence that's buried somewhere out in the desert, etc. Think about it like this. In the new movie Tron Ares, I don't want to ruin it for anybody. I hope I don't. If you've not seen this before, then you're really not that big of a fan anyway. So I'm just kind of going to give you a little bit of an idea. I'm not going to ruin it all. But the defense of the system was artificial intelligence who went off the system a little bit and did his own thing. And when I look at entities like angels, some of the angels at least, that seem to be able to interact, or demons even, that seem to be able to interact electronically, even with radios and stuff. I mean, they literally interact electronically. And Jesus said he saw Satan as like he was lightning, like he uses the word lightning. And there's a lot about electricity and these entities that have in common. So like the World Wide Web, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. Like, I don't know. Like, it seems like it could have been around longer. And yes, I have a fly on my microphone here. If you guys have seen that, I don't know. Last time people thought they saw orbs flying around. But look, here's the deal. I live in the country, and I have sheep out there in the field. And sometimes there are an abundance of flying animals that get into my house. And so that's what happens. It's not orbs or spirits flying around, I don't think. Hope not, anyway. But I don't think that's what it is. So anyways, a few more minutes if anybody has any more questions or comments or just anything else they'd like to say or do or whatever. So Paul Rayo says, are you willing to debate regular people if they have substance to their interests that God would like the world to know? I mean, it depends. If I feel like God's like, hey, you need to debate this person, I'll do it. But I'm not like out there searching actively for debates or anything like that. I'm not searching for those debates. In fact, I really don't want to debate anybody unless it's something that it's like I feel like is a slam dunk easy talk about, because there's some things I don't really feel that dominant about to begin with. So it depends on what you want to debate, I guess. In general. So it says, what do you know about nanotechnologies, nanites, and their relation to the beast system? This fly will not leave me alone, yo. I might have to end this here soon just because these flies, the Lord of the Flies is after me. What do I know about nanotechnologies, nanites, and their relation to the beast system, the nanogrid? So I know a little bit about nanotech. I know that when it comes to like, there's different kinds of nanotech. There's like nanoparticles, nanobots, etc. Speaking of that, like NanoX, for instance, is one of the sponsors or the sponsor for Pounder's Quest, one of the only sponsor we have right now. But they have a pain cream called NanoX and Nano Extreme Pain Cream. And I went to their lab and I actually saw the machine that they use to convert the particles down to nanoparticles. And so nano is just like a size comparison. So it's the size of the particle, which is what makes their cream actually work so good. This is why it actually works. Like when I have, the carpal tunnel in my wrists, I put it on there and it works instantly. So like I like it a lot because carpal tunnel sucks. I'm in pain a lot. But the reason it works so good is because it actually has nanoparticles that go down into the skin. Now imagine that technology being used for evil. That's scary and frightening. So yeah, I'm familiar with it to a certain extent. I'm not familiar with the evil side of it. I'm only familiar with what people have been using it for in technology, maybe for the good side of it. But yeah, I'm definitely familiar. Not by no means am I a nanotech engineer or anything along those lines, though. I'm not that familiar. I've done a little engineer work, tool and die and stuff like that around the years, I guess you could say. Not a lot. I wouldn't classify myself as a brilliant engineer by any means, but definitely not a nanotech engineer, so I don't know a whole lot about it. So anyways, and if you guys do plan on buying some of that nano cream that is in there, it goes through all 7 layers of skin. There's a link in the description for it. I mean, you can go to their link, any link they have, but I do have some promo codes that you can use. I think they have there's like an $8 off coupon code or a free shipping promo code. And I really don't know which one's better coupon right now, because I think they also have possibly a 25% sale going on. So it might be better to use the shipping coupon than the $8 off one. I don't really know for sure like exactly which one, but one or the other would, you can look at it and you'll be able to see for yourself, but you can use one or the other when it comes to that. I need a nano tech to kill these flies is what I need. So, but anyways, guys, listen, I enjoyed this. If you guys enjoyed it, hit the thumbs up, pound the like button if you enjoyed it, because that helps me gauge, do people like what I'm doing here? Comment. That helps me know if you guys like what I'm doing. Share this out. Hopefully more Christians will get on board and understanding, or at least looking into this subject, because like I am concerned. I'm concerned that like they're going to fall for the first thing that falls their way, and the pastors won't even know what's coming. Like they have no idea. Like they're still off in La La Land with something. I don't know. But look, share this out with your pastor, etc. And we love you guys out there, even you pastors out there, churches, people that aren't even in the church, people that are just out there in general. Look, I love you guys, and I hope and pray for all of you guys that you just overwhelming, anybody that's listening right now, overwhelming blessings to you. That's what I pray, and I pray that in Jesus' name. I'll talk to you guys next time, and I love you guys. Take care.
The world keeps lying, but he won't retreat on his quest for truth. Yeah. Truth, quest for truth. They can't stop me, they can't block me.